Hi, my name is Christy Clark. Welcome to MediMobile's LinkedIn Live demo of our AI medical coding solutions, Genesis. I'm an account manager here at MediMobile. We're the leaders of innovation in the medical coding industry. Our goal is to increase revenue, streamline workflows for providers, coders, and billers. We're about to get started on our demo, but please stick around afterwards for a Q&A session with our Director of Business Development, Lauren Hall. You can submit your questions in the chat at any time. Now let's begin. So, how does our system get your data? We get the data from the information already being documented in your EMR, like patient charts, visit notes through ADT and MDM feeds. Genesis connects to your EMR or your practice management software, pulls the necessary details in real time, and uses that data to generate accurate coding recommendations. It's seamless, secure, and happens behind the scenes. Now let's head over to our software. All right, so we are here in Dr. Stacy Astor's account. We have two widgets that we primarily work out of, which is our active list widget and active list confirm versus unconfirmed widget. Right here, if our provider would be associated with multiple facilities, it would be here in the drop-down box. It tells us that Dr. Stacy Astor does have 5 encounters for today's data service. By clicking anywhere in that circle, it's going to show us those encounters. For an example, Olivia Smith. It shows us the information that was transmitted over, such as data service, MRN number. If an account number had been populated over, it would be right here, and of course the facility that she was seen at. The system did read the notation and documented the CPTs and diagnosis codes accordingly. If we want to see the notation that the provider made, we can simply come right here and it will show us the actual notation if the provider would like to go back and reread the notes that were made on that patient. Right here is our scoring guidelines. So it tells us that the documentation was good, that it scored well enough for it to provide the CPTs and the diagnosis codes. So all the provider has to come in and do is quote, approve the bill. And just like that, that bill is now completed and pending to go off to the billing team. We're going to take a look at another one right here, Charlotte Williams. You'll see on Charlotte Williams, we did receive an account number. So same thing, patient's name, date of service, MRN number, account number, and facility. The scoring guidelines right here for the documentation provided was good, and all the provider has to do is come in here and approve the bill. So right here, it will tell us that it's going to stay in this status for 2 days, and after that, it will confirm off to the billing team. That is customizable, so when you're going through your setup with your implementations team, you would let them know how long you want it to sit in the unconfirmed status before transmitting over to your billing team. The most common time frame we see is 48 hours. However, like I said, you could do as little as 12, or some do even 72 hours before it gets sent off to the billing team. Now, if I want to collapse that widget to move on, I would just tell it back to grid. Here's our other widget that we use quite frequently. So this is our active list confirm versus unconfirmed widget. I can click anywhere in the circle, and it's going to bring us up all 9 charges that Dr. Stacy Astor has done in the last 48 hours. Now, nothing is required to be done here because remember, it will auto confirm off to her billing team. However, maybe she's approaching end of the month, or she was behind a little bit on her billing team and they've behind on her billing, and they've advised her to go ahead and get that sent off. By just a few simple clicks, that has now been sent off to her billing team. So pretty quick and simple to do if need be and needing to do it manually. I do want to take a quick moment and point out MediMobile's reporting tab. So MediMobile is known for its robust reporting system. This is just a few of the reports we have loaded into the account. But our classic report is going to be our report that has the most information. It's return patients and billing information. We have billing reports and many, many others. So please, If you see a report if you don't see a report of something you're attempting to track, get with your account manager and they would be able to tell you if we have a report already built around that or if it's something that we can get a report made built around. The good thing about this, you can also set reports to run every so often, and then they would just be here waiting for you to be able to pull out of the software to utilize and present at any time needed. To put it simple, Genesis automates medical coding, reduces errors, increases revenue, and integrates seamlessly with your existing systems. Our clients love Genesis because it reduces manual workload and improves coding accuracy. One of our clients, a multi-specialty practice with 15 clinicians, shared that they saw a 50% reduction within the first few months. If you've got a question, post it in the chat now. I'd like to welcome Lauren, our MediMobile's Director of Business Development, to provide some insight on some of your questions. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you for having me, Christy. Great job.
All right, first question. What are the main challenges Genesis is helping to solve in the medical coding?
So, our team looked at a lot of the challenges around workflow and how to increase efficiency. So, one thing we first looked at was the amount of time providers actually spend adding CPT and diagnosis code to encounters. And we're able to reduce that by 10 to 20 hours per week with Genesis. So, we looked at the amount of time being spent by providers. We also looked at the amount of time billers and coders spend reviewing the CPT and diagnosis codes added or even having to generate those themselves. And we're seeing 75% of their time returned, which then allows them to focus on tasks that were previously ignored because there just simply was not enough time. Another large challenge that we typically see are the rate of denials based off of limited or incomplete documentation. So, Genesis is going to code accurately meeting the CMS guidelines and reduce those denials significantly. So, we looked at workflows, workload, as well as denials, and the need to address all three of those issues are addressed with Genesis.
Awesome, thank you. Can you explain how Genesis integrates with existing EMRs and other software systems in the hospitals or practices?
Absolutely. So we do have a dedicated integrations team, and that dedicated integrations team works with the integrations team at the facility to obtain the ADT, the admit discharge transfer feed, along with the MDM feed, the medical decision making feed, which is where providers create their notes. So those integrations are set up to send that data to MediMobile after going through the security parameters that both sides require. And we then take the medical documentation and run it through our autonomous coding engine, where we're able to gather the data necessary to add the CPT and diagnosis codes to the various encounters.
Awesome, okay. What sets Genesis apart from other automated coding solutions on the market?
So, one thing that really does set us apart is our accuracy rate. We are looking at around a 95% accuracy rate, and that is due in part to the amount of time that our engineers spent perfecting our coding engine. Coupled with the continuous feedback loop that we work with our customers to ensure that coding meets their specific needs, that also adds to that accuracy rate. Additionally, our ability to process medical documentation in an HL7 format does set us apart from our competitors. We are the only charge capture solution currently that is able to process that data in real time. So, being able to do that definitely sets us apart and actually sets up our autonomous coding engine for success.
Awesome, thank you. What do you see as the number one benefit in automated medical coding?
So, of course, the reduced number of hours in the workflow for both providers as well as coders is significant. The reduction in denials obviously helps increase revenue, but overall, what you start to see with that reduction in time spent adding CPT and diagnosis codes or digging into documentation to add CPT and diagnosis codes, with the accuracy of the codes added through Genesis, that reduction in denials, you see that increase in revenue, but you also see it faster. So your providers are able to spend more time with patients, but they're also able to see more patients, which will increase revenue. That decrease in denials, again, is giving back time to your billers and coders. They're not having to go through and upload documentation to help with the reprocessing of denials. So, all of this time saved, all of these resources saved, of course, you're recouping revenue, but you're also seeing that increase in revenue very quickly.
Awesome. How do organizations measure return on investment with Genesis? What results are they typically seeing?
So, like we just talked about, it's that reduction in time spent doing these tasks. We know that coders and billers are very valuable assets and a lot of them suffer from burnout. So let's save them from that. Let's automate some of these processes to keep them within your organization. Let's free up providers to see more patients, and that return of investment, of course, we want to look at revenue. So, again, you're going to see that increase in revenue due to the turnaround time to process claims, as well as the accuracy with the coding through Genesis. So, you don't have your team working through denials. They're also processing charges much faster than previously, just because they're not having to comb through those documents or do an investigation into their denials.
Awesome, great. We have some additional questions from our audience. They
Okay.
would like to know, what size of practice does Genesis work for?
All sizes. So we have groups that are single doc groups utilizing Genesis, and then we have groups of hundreds of providers utilizing Genesis. So the size absolutely does not matter. We just need to be able to set up that integration with the notes, and we can get you started.
Awesome, yes, ma'am. They would like to know, how did Genesis get its name?
So it's a really cool story, actually. So our Genesis has been in the works for many years, but once it was completed and tested and everything, our team internally sent out an email for suggestions from employees. And one of our account managers from MediMobile, Amelia Young, actually came up with the name Genesis and had a story behind it about how MediMobile is bringing its customers to the forefront of technology. This is a new day and age in healthcare technology, and that is Genesis. So the name actually came from someone within MediMobile.
That's awesome, yes. They would also like to know, does MediMobile work with medical billing companies?
Oh, absolutely. So, we actually have partnerships with medical billing companies. We can set up integrations directly with billing system interfaces from our system, which makes that integration very seamless to get charges out the door even faster. But yes, we do work with billing companies frequently. And in that case, that helps minimize the number of contracts your customers have to enter into because we can connect directly with the billing companies.
Awesome, okay. And how can the system be customized? The audience would like to know.
So MediMobile is very customizable. One of the great examples is with AI with Genesis itself. We know that some providers want to enter their CPT and diagnosis codes themselves. So within your practice, if you have a provider that does not want Genesis turned on for them, it's customizable by profile. So you can have providers within the same organization that are utilizing the AI coding and others that are not. Or if you have providers that don't even want to approve the codes on their active list, we can turn on what's called pass through. And those charges can move directly to your billing and coding team in charge review, where they can review the codes added and approve them that way. There's a lot of customization around rules. And like you talked about, Christy, with reports, we have hundreds and hundreds of reports. But if there's a specific need within your organization for specific data and it's not already built into a report, you can just reach out to your account manager and we can get that report built out for you.
Perfect, okay. How long does it take for the transition to Genesis?
So, once we have obtained the MDM, the medical decision making or the notes feed, it does take our system time to process and read and retain the knowledge from those documents. It really ranges based off of the templates being utilized and the information that we glean from that first look. But we're looking anywhere from 30 to 90 days, just depending on the documentation, the templates being used, and that's part of that continuous feedback loop. So when we're looking at the template types, if we see any oddities, we'll get back with the organization to get further information to see if there are any nuances that we need to account for within the system.
Awesome. Okay. They would like to know what happens when the documentation is incomplete.
So when the documentation is incomplete, we will assign, if it's unable to add a diagnosis code, for example, any diagnosis code, we would apply, it's called no diag. It's a customized code that we would attach. Now, in the meantime, our system makes note that we were unable to attach a diagnosis code, and the providers can see that charge grid that you pointed out, but we'll also communicate back with the practice with that information so we can help the group improve and ensure that we have everything we need within the document.
Awesome. Okay. One last question. How much time does automated medical coding save?
So for providers, we're seeing upwards of 10 to 20 hours per week. For your coders, we're seeing a 75% reduction in the time that they spend coding documents. So, what can happen, like we've talked about, providers can see more patients or spend more time with their current patients. And for coders, we're talking about them being able to focus on more detailed cases or other tasks that maybe have been ignored because of the amount of time that had to be spent coding documents.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren, for your valuable insight, and thank you all for joining us today. If you'd like to learn more, schedule an additional demo, or get pricing details, please fill out the form in the chat, or you can reach us directly at medimobile.com. Or my personal email address is christyc@medimobile.com. Thank you for your time today.